It was a day like any other in Washington, D.C., where the air buzzed with ambition and secrets. The halls of power were alive with whispers of deals being made, alliances shifting, and scandals waiting to explode. At the center of it all was Jasmine Crockett, a rising star in American politics. Known for her fiery speeches and unwavering commitment to progressive causes, she had become a household name over the past few years. People admired her passion, her sharp mind, and her ability to connect with ordinary citizens through social media. But today, something felt different. Jasmine stood in front of the mirror in her hotel room, adjusting the collar of her tailored blazer. She exhaled deeply, trying to calm her nerves. Today wasn't just another appearance on national television. It was a face-off with Marjorie Greene, someone who seemed determined to make life difficult for her. Their rivalry had been brewing for months, ever since Jasmine accused Marjorie of leaking classified information about government surveillance programs. Marjorie denied everything, of course, but that didn't stop the endless back and forth in interviews, tweets, and press releases. Now they were finally going head-to-head on Live Nation, the most popular political talk show in the country. Her aide, Rachel Meyer, knocked softly on the bathroom door before stepping inside. "You ready?" she asked, holding a clipboard filled with notes. Rachel was young, maybe in her late 20s, with curly brown hair tied into a neat ponytail. She had been by Jasmine's side since the beginning of her campaign, always loyal and always prepared. "As ready as I'll ever be," Jasmine replied, forcing a smile. She turned away from the mirror and grabbed her bag. "Let's go." The ride to the studio was quiet except for the hum of the car engine. Rachel scrolled through her phone, occasionally muttering updates about trending topics online. Jasmine stared out the window watching the city rush past. Her mind replayed every possible scenario for the interview. What if Marjorie brought up the leaked emails again? What if the host sided with her? What if— "Stop overthinking," Rachel interrupted gently, noticing Jasmine's furrowed brow. "You've got this. Just stick to the facts and stay calm. Remember, you're not the one hiding anything." Jasmine nodded, though doubt lingered in her chest. She trusted Rachel completely, but even the best preparation couldn't account for what might happen live on TV. Anything could go wrong, and knowing Marjorie, it probably would. When they arrived at the studio, the energy was electric. Cameras lined the edges of the set, and technicians scurried around making last-minute adjustments. Alan Carter, the show's seasoned host, greeted Jasmine with a firm handshake. He was older, with silver hair and a reassuring demeanor. "Good luck out there," he said with a small smile. "Should be an interesting hour." "Thanks," Jasmine muttered, feeling a knot tighten in her stomach. Across the room, Marjorie stood surrounded by her own team, laughing loudly at some joke one of them had made. She caught Jasmine's eye and smirked, tilting her head slightly as if to say, "Are you sure you're ready for this?" Jasmine looked away quickly, refusing to let Marjorie get under her skin before they even started. Instead, she focused on reviewing her talking points with Rachel. They went over key statistics, potential rebuttals, and strategies for staying, composed no matter what happened. Finally, it was time. The producer counted down, 3, 2, 1, and the cameras rolled. Alan welcomed the viewers, introducing both guests with equal enthusiasm. Tonight, we have two powerful voices in American politics joining us for what promises to be a lively discussion. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and Representative Marjorie Greene are here to tackle some of the biggest issues facing our nation today. The applause from the live audience echoed through the studio. Jasmine smiled politely, leaning forward slightly in her chair. Marjorie mirrored her posture, her expression unreadable but undeniably confident. Alan began with neutral questions, giving each woman a chance to share their perspectives on recent policy changes. Jasmine spoke passionately about healthcare, reform and education funding, earning nods of approval from the audience. Marjorie countered with arguments about personal responsibility and limited government intervention, drawing cheers from her supporters in the crowd. For the first 10 minutes, everything seemed fine. Both women stuck to their scripts, exchanging polite jabs without crossing the line. Then, without warning, Marjorie shifted gears. She reached for a tablet resting on the desk in front of her and tapped a few times. Suddenly, the large screen behind them lit up with images of emails. "This," Marjorie announced dramatically, pointing at the screen, "is evidence of corruption at its finest." The audience gasped audibly. Jasmine froze, her eyes darting toward the screen. There, displayed for everyone to see, were emails allegedly written by her. They appeared to show secret communications with Nexus Dynamics, a tech conglomerate notorious for its influence in Washington. According to the documents, Jasmine had accepted bribes in exchange for pushing legislation favorable to the company, all while publicly denouncing corporate greed. "This is outrageous," Jasmine stammered, her voice trembling. "Those emails are fake. This is slander." Marjorie leaned back in her chair, a smug grin spreading across her face. "If they're fake, why don't you explain them, Jasmine? Or is the truth too uncomfortable for you to admit?" Alan tried to intervene, sensing the tension escalating. "Ladies, let's keep this civil." But Jasmine couldn't hold herself together anymore. Years of pressure, scrutiny, and now this blatant attack, it was too much. She stood abruptly, knocking her chair backward. "You think you can ruin my reputation with lies?" she shouted, pointing a finger at Marjorie. "I won't stand here and let you destroy me." The audience erupted into shocked murmurs. Cameras zoomed in on Jasmine's flushed face as she stormed off the stage, leaving Marjorie sitting calmly, almost amused by the spectacle. Backstage, Rachel rushed to meet Jasmine, grabbing her arm. "What are you doing?" she hissed. "We need to fix this." But it was already too late. Millions of people had watched the meltdown live, and within minutes, clips of Jasmine losing her temper were circulating online. Memes popped up instantly, mocking her breakdown. Calls for her resignation flooded social media platforms. Jasmine sank onto a couch in her dressing room, burying her face in her hands. For the first time in her career, she felt truly powerless. How had things spiraled so far out of control? And more importantly, how was she going to fix it? Rachel sat beside her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "We'll figure this out," she promised. "But right now you need to breathe. Panic won't help anyone." Jasmine nodded. Slowly, though, doubt still clouded her thoughts. One thing was certain. Her life and her career would never be the same again. The studio meltdown haunted Jasmine long after the cameras stopped rolling. Back in her office, located in a quiet corner of Capitol Hill, she tried to regroup, but it wasn't easy. The weight of what had happened pressed down on her like a ton of bricks. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the audience gasping, Marjorie smirking, and the damning emails flashing across the screen. It was all anyone could talk about now. Jasmine Crockett losing control on live TV. Her team gathered around her, working tirelessly to manage the fallout. Rachel Meyer paced back and forth, phone glued to her ear as she fielded calls from reporters and allies alike. Daniel Brooks, Jasmine's campaign manager, sat at a nearby table typing furiously on his laptop, drafting statements and analyzing social media trends. The room buzzed with activity, yet no one spoke above a whisper. Everyone knew how precarious their situation was. "This isn't good," Daniel muttered finally, breaking the tense silence. He turned his laptop toward Jasmine so she could see the screen. "Look at this." Jasmine leaned forward reluctantly. Her stomach sank as she scrolled through dozens of memes mocking her outburst. In some, she was photoshopped into cartoonish scenes, yelling at random objects. Others featured captions like, "When you get caught red-handed" or "Meltdown Monday." Each one stung more than the last. "Social media is eating us alive," Daniel continued grimly. "And it's not just online. The cable networks are running segments about your unprofessional behavior. They're calling it career ending." Jasmine buried her face in her hands, feeling a headache forming behind her temples. She wanted to scream, to throw something, to disappear. But instead she forced herself to take a deep breath. "Okay," she said slowly, looking up at her team. "We need a plan. What do we do next?" Rachel stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on Jasmine's shoulder. "First, we issue a statement denying the allegations. We stick to our guns. Those emails are fake. forged by someone trying to sabotage you. Second, we focus on damage control. You can't let people think you're guilty, even if they're laughing at you right now. Jasmine nodded, though doubt lingered in her mind. How could she fight back when the evidence seemed so damning? And worse, how could she regain public trust after completely losing her cool on national television? As if reading her thoughts, Daniel added, "You also need to apologize for walking off the stage, I mean. Not for the emails because they're fake, but for letting emotions get the better of you. People respect strength, but they also value humility. Admitting you made a mistake might actually help." It felt strange hearing those words. Apologizing meant admitting weakness, something Jasmine rarely did. But Daniel was right. If she didn't address the incident directly, critics would only pile on harder. Swallowing her pride, she agreed. "Fine, let's write the apology." For the next hour, the three of them worked together to craft a carefully worded message. It acknowledged Jasmine's emotional reaction without conceding guilt, emphasizing her commitment to transparency and accountability. By the end of it, she felt marginally better, but only marginally. Meanwhile, outside the office, Marjorie Taylor Greene wasted no time capitalizing on the chaos. Within hours of the interview, she appeared on multiple news programs, spinning the narrative exactly as she wanted. "I gave her a chance to explain herself," Marjorie told one anchor, shaking her head solemnly. "But instead of addressing the truth, she chose to lash out. That tells you everything you need to know." Her comments fueled the firestorm, turning public opinion further against Jasmine. Critics called her untrustworthy, unstable, and unfit for office. Even some of her former supporters began distancing themselves, afraid of being associated with the scandal. By late afternoon, Jasmine couldn't bear to watch anymore. She sent Rachel home early, claiming she needed space to think. Alone in her office, she stared out the window at the city skyline, wondering how things had gone so wrong so fast. Had she misjudged Marjorie? Overestimated her own resilience? Or was this part of some larger scheme she couldn't yet see? Her phone buzzed incessantly on the desk, notifications pinging every few seconds. Reporters, colleagues, friends, all wanting answers she didn't have. Finally, unable to ignore it any longer, she picked it up and scrolled through the messages. Most were predictable. Angry constituents demanding explanations, snarky texts from opponents gloating about her downfall. But one stood out, a text from an unknown number. It read simply, "Stop digging. You don't want to find what's buried." Jasmine froze, staring at the screen. Who could have sent that? And what did it mean? Was it a threat, a warning? Her heart raced as she reread the message several times, searching for clues. Whoever it was, they knew something, and they didn't want her to dig deeper. Before she could respond, another message popped up. This one contained a link. Hesitant, but curious, Jasmine clicked it. Her browser opened to a secure document sharing site, prompting her to enter a password. Frustrated, she tossed the phone onto the desk. What was this nonsense? Some kind of prank? Still, the mysterious message gnawed at her. If someone was trying to scare her away from investigating the emails, maybe there really was something to uncover. Maybe the truth wasn't as simple as Marjorie claimed. Later that evening, Rachel returned to the office carrying takeout bags filled with sandwiches and coffee. "Thought you might need reinforcements," she said lightly, setting the food down on the desk. When she noticed Jasmine's distracted expression, she frowned. "What's wrong?" Jasmine hesitated before showing her the messages. Rachel's eyes widened as she read them. "Do you recognize the number?" she asked. "No idea who it is," Jasmine admitted. "But whoever it is, they seem to know something about the emails. Or at least, they're scared, I'll figure it out." Rachel bit her lip, thinking, could be a trap or it could be legit. Either way, we should tell someone, maybe bring in a professional investigator. The suggestion caught Jasmine off guard. Hiring an outsider felt risky, especially given how sensitive the situation already was. But Rachel had a point. They couldn't handle this alone. With a reluctant sigh, Jasmine nodded. "All right. Let's look into it tomorrow." For now, let's eat and try to clear our heads." They ate in relative silence, the weight of the day hanging over them. Outside, the city lights twinkled brightly, oblivious to the turmoil inside the office. For Jasmine, sleep felt impossibly far away. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marjorie's smug grin, heard the audience gasping, felt the sting of betrayal. Yet amidst the chaos, one thought kept nagging at her. What if the emails aren't fake? What if someone close to me has been lying all along? Unbeknownst to her, the real battle was only beginning. The next morning, Jasmine woke up exhausted. She hadn't slept well, tossing and turning as her mind replayed every detail of the scandal. Her phone buzzed constantly with notifications, angry tweets, mocking memes, and calls from reporters. She didn't want to answer. It felt like the entire world was against her. Rachel arrived early, carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee. "You look terrible," she said bluntly, handing 1 cup to Jasmine. "But I have good news. I found someone who can help us." Jasmine raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "Who?" "His name is Lucas Ford. He's a former FBI agent turned private investigator. He specializes in high-profile cases like this. Corruption, leaks, blackmail, you name it. If anyone can figure out where those emails came from, it's him." Jasmine hesitated. Bringing in an outsider meant trusting someone new, which felt risky. But what choice did she have? She couldn't face this alone anymore. "All right," she said finally. "Let's meet him." Later that afternoon, Lucas arrived at Jasmine's office. He was older than she expected, maybe in his 50s, with graying hair and a no-nonsense demeanor. His suit was slightly wrinkled, and he carried a worn leather briefcase. Despite his rough appearance, there was something calming about him, a sense that he'd seen worse situations and survived. "Thanks for coming," Jasmine said, shaking his hand firmly. "I assume Rachel explained everything?" Lucas nodded, pulling out a notepad. "She gave me the basics. Now I need you to walk me through everything yourself. Every detail matters." For the next hour, Jasmine recounted the events leading up to the scandal, the accusations, the live TV meltdown, the mysterious text message. Lucas listened carefully, jotting down notes without interrupting. When she finished, he leaned back in his chair, tapping his pen against his chin. "This smells like a setup," he said finally. "Someone went to great lengths to make those. Emails look real, my guess? They're forged, but whoever did it knew enough about your habits to make them believable." Jasmine felt a flicker of hope. "So you think we can prove they're fake?" "It's possible," Lucas replied cautiously. "But proving forgery takes time, and until then the damage is already done. Public opinion moves faster than evidence. We'll need to work quickly." Over the next few days, Lucas dove into the investigation, combing through the leaked emails and tracing their origins. He worked tirelessly, often staying late into the night alongside Jasmine and Rachel. Together, they pored over data, cross-referencing timestamps, IP addresses, and metadata. Slow Americans. The investigation was moving slowly, but Lucas Ford's persistence began to pay off. After days of analyzing the leaked emails, he discovered inconsistencies that suggested they had been tampered with. The timestamps didn't align, and certain phrases in the text seemed too perfect, like someone had studied Jasmine's writing style and mimicked it carefully. But there was another clue that stood out. One of the IP addresses linked to the emails belonged to someone on Capitol Hill, someone close to Jasmine. "This doesn't make sense," Lucas muttered, staring at his laptop screen late one night. Jasmine and Rachel sat across from him, both exhausted but still hanging on every word. "Whoever forged these emails used a secure network inside your office building." Jasmine's heart sank. "You're saying someone on my team did this?" "It's possible," Lucas admitted. "Or someone hacked into their account. Either way, we need to narrow it down." Rachel leaned forward, frowning. "That's impossible. Everyone here is loyal to Jasmine. No one would betray her like this. People do strange things under pressure," Lucas said calmly. "Let's not jump to conclusions. We'll review access logs and see who had the means and opportunity." Over the next few days, Lucas dug deeper, tracing every connection and interviewing members of Jasmine's staff. At first, no one seemed suspicious. Her aides were nervous about the scandal, sure, but none of them appeared guilty. Then Lucas found something odd. Rachel Meyer's login credentials had been used to access sensitive files around the time the emails were leaked. He pulled Jasmine aside after discovering this. "I don't want to alarm you," he said quietly, "but Rachel's name keeps coming up. I think we need to talk to her." Jasmine felt a lump form in her throat. Rachel had been with her since the beginning. Loyal, hard-working, always by her side. The idea of her being involved was unthinkable. But Lucas was right. They couldn't ignore the evidence. Later that evening, Jasmine asked Rachel to stay behind after everyone else had left. The two women sat in the quiet office, the hum of computers filling the silence. Jasmine struggled to find the right words. "Lucas found something," she began hesitantly. "Your login was used to access files connected to the emails." Rachel's face went pale. She opened her mouth to protest, but no sound came out. Instead, she looked down at her hands, twisting them nervously. "Rachel," Jasmine pressed, her voice trembling, "if you know something, you have to tell me. Please." Tears welled up in Rachel's eyes. For a moment, she stayed silent, battling some internal conflict. Finally, she spoke. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," she whispered. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen." Jasmine's stomach churned. "What are you talking about?" Rachel took a deep breath, steeling herself. "Someone contacted me a few weeks ago. They said they had footage of my brother, stuff that could ruin his career if it got out. He's stationed overseas, and they threatened to release it unless I helped them." "Help them how?" Jasmine demanded, her voice rising. "They wanted access to your emails," Rachel admitted, tears streaming down her face now. "They gave me instructions, told me what to send. I thought it was just harmless stuff, at least that's what I told myself. I never imagined they'd use it like this." Jasmine felt like the floor had dropped out from beneath her. Betrayal hit her like a punch to the gut. "Why didn't you come to me?" she asked, her voice breaking. "I could have protected you, protected us. I was scared." "Rachel," cried. "They said they'd hurt my family if I told anyone. I didn't know what else to do." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Jasmine stared at Rachel, torn between anger and pity. She wanted to scream, to throw her out of the office, but she also knew Rachel hadn't acted out of malice. She'd been cornered, manipulated into making a terrible choice. Lucas stepped into the room then, having heard enough. "We need to figure out who's behind this," he said firmly. "Rachel, can you give us any details? Anything at all?" Rachel nodded, wiping her eyes. "They communicated through encrypted messages. I never met them in person, but..." She hesitated, pulling a USB drive from her pocket. "I kept copies of everything they sent me, just in case." Jasmine stared at the USB drive, her mind racing. If Rachel was telling the truth, and Jasmine desperately hoped she was, they finally had a lead. Whoever was blackmailing Rachel was part of a much larger operation. Lucas took the drive and plugged it into his laptop. As he sifted through the files, his expression grew darker. "This goes deeper than I thought," he muttered. "These people aren't amateurs. Look at this." He turned the screen toward Jasmine and Rachel. On it was a series of documents linking the blackmail scheme to a secretive organization known only as the Syndicate. According to the files, the UA Syndicate specialized in manipulating global events using advanced algorithms and artificial intelligence. Their goal was to destabilize governments by pitting powerful figures against each other, creating chaos and confusion. "They targeted you specifically," Lucas explained. "By exposing those emails, they hoped to discredit not just you, but the entire system you represent." Jasmine felt sick. This wasn't just about her anymore, it was about something much bigger. And yet knowing the truth didn't make her feel better. If anything, it made her feel smaller, more powerless. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Lucas closed the laptop and looked at her steadily. "We fight back. But it won't be easy. These people played dirty and they won't stop until they've won. Are you ready for that? Jasmine hesitated. Fighting meant risking everything. Her career, her reputation, maybe even her safety. But giving up wasn't an option either. Not when so much was at stake. Yes, she said finally, her voice firm despite the fear gnawing at her insides. Let's take them down. With Rachel's confession and the files she'd kept, Jasmine, Lucas, and their small team had enough information to start unraveling the syndicate's plan. But knowing who they were dealing with didn't make the task any easier. This wasn't just some rogue group or petty criminals. It was an organization with vast resources, cutting-edge technology, and connections everywhere. Lucas explained it all to Jasmine one evening in her office. The syndicate operates like a spider web, he said, pointing to a corkboard covered in notes and red string connecting names, photos, and locations. They pull strings from behind the scenes, using people like pawns. If we go after them, directly they'll retaliate hard. Jasmine studied the board, her jaw tightening. Victor Kane's name stood out prominently, a charismatic yet ruthless figure known for orchestrating high-stakes schemes. According to the files Rachel provided, Victor was the mastermind behind the email leak that had ruined Jasmine's reputation. His goal? To spark division and chaos by turning powerful figures like Jasmine and Marjorie Taylor Greene against each other. So what do we do? Jasmine asked, her voice firm, despite the fear bubbling beneath the surface. We hit them where it hurts, Lucas replied. Expose them publicly. Show the world exactly what they're doing, but first we need proof. Solid evidence that ties Victor directly to this operation. Finding that proof wouldn't be easy. The syndicate was careful, leaving almost no trace of its activities online. That's where Mia Torres came in. A young hacker with a troubled past, Mia had been helping Lucas on cases like this for years. She agreed to join their team after hearing about Jasmine's situation, saying she hated how organizations like the syndicate manipulated innocent people. Working late into the night, Mia sat hunched over her laptop in the corner of Jasmine's office. Her fingers flew across the keyboard as she hacked into secure networks, searching for anything that could link Victor to the blackmail scheme. Meanwhile, Lucas focused on tracking down physical locations tied to the syndicate's operations. After days of relentless effort, Mia finally found something big. Encrypted files stored on a server located in a skyscraper downtown. The building belonged to Nexus Dynamics, the same tech conglomerate mentioned in the leaked emails. It seemed the syndicate had been using the company as a front for its activities. This is it, Mia said excitedly, spinning her laptop around so Jasmine and Lucas could see. On the screen was a map of the building's layout, along with security, codes, and access points. If we can get inside, we might find everything we need to take them down. Jasmine stared at the map, her heart pounding. Breaking into a heavily guarded skyscraper sounded insane and dangerous, but she didn't have a choice. Every second they waited gave Victor more time to twist the narrative further, making her look even guiltier. Let's do it, she said firmly. But we need a plan. Together, the three of them devised a risky strategy. Using stolen credentials and hacking tools provided by Mia, they would infiltrate the building under cover of darkness. Their target was the top floor, where the main server room was located. Once inside, Mia would download the incriminating files while Jasmine and Lucas kept watch. The night of the mission, Jasmine felt a mix of adrenaline and dread. Dressed in black clothing, she followed Lucas and Mia through the shadows toward the towering skyscraper. The streets were eerily quiet, the only sound the distant hum of traffic and the occasional gust of wind. Getting into the building proved easier than expected, thanks to Mia's skills. She bypassed the electronic locks, with ease guiding them past security cameras and motion sensors. As they climbed higher, the tension grew thicker. Each step brought them closer to Victor, and possibly to disaster. When they reached the server room, Mia got to work immediately, plugging her laptop into the system. Lines of code scrolled across her screen as she searched for the files they needed. Jasmine and Lucas stood guard, peering through the glass walls for any sign of trouble. Suddenly, the door burst open. Victor Kane strode in, flanked by 2 armed guards. He looked every bit the villain Jasmine had imagined, tall, confident, and utterly unbothered by their presence. "Well, well," he said with a smirk, glancing at Jasmine. "I didn't expect you to come knocking personally." Jasmine stepped forward, her fists clenched. "Your game's over, Victor. We know everything." Victor chuckled, shaking his head. "You think breaking in here changes anything? You're just another pawn in a much larger game." "We'll see about that." Jasmine shot back. Behind her, Mia whispered urgently, "Almost done." Victor noticed Mia working and raised an eyebrow. "Ah, I see. Trying to steal my secrets, are we?" He snapped his fingers, and the guards moved toward Mia. Thinking quickly, Jasmine lunged at Victor, tackling him to the ground. Chaos erupted as Lucas fought off the guards, giving Mia precious seconds to finish downloading the files. By the time Victor recovered, Mia shouted, "Got it, let's go!" They ran for the exit, dodging security patrols and alarms triggered by the commotion. Outside, the cool night air hit them like a wave as they sprinted toward their getaway, car parked nearby. Bullets whizzed past them, shattering windows and sparking off metal, but somehow they made it inside alive. As they sped away, Mia plugged the USB drive into her laptop and pulled up the files. They contained everything they needed: documents proving Victor's involvement in the blackmail scheme, details about the syndicate's operations, and evidence linking Nexus Dynamics to illegal activities. For the first time in weeks, Jasmine allowed herself a small smile. They had done it. They had proof. Now all they had to do was share it with the world. But as they drove through the darkened city streets, Jasmine couldn't shake the feeling that this victory was only temporary. Taking down the syndicate wouldn't be easy, and exposing the truth came with risks. Still, she knew one thing for certain: she was ready to fight. The next morning, Jasmine stood in front of a crowded auditorium, her heart pounding as she prepared to deliver the most important speech of her life. Reporters filled the rows, their cameras trained on her like hawks circling prey. Every major news outlet was represented: CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, even international networks. This wasn't just another political event. It was a reckoning. Behind her, a large digital screen displayed the files Mia had retrieved from Nexus Dynamics server. Documents, emails, and financial records painted a clear picture of the syndicate's operations and Victor Kane's role in orchestrating them. It was overwhelming evidence, enough to expose not only Victor but also the corrupt systems he manipulated for power. Jasmine took a deep breath, gripping the edges of the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her. "For weeks I've been accused of corruption, dishonesty, and betrayal. My reputation has been dragged through the mud, my career called into question. But today I'm here to tell you the truth, not just about me, but about something much bigger." She paused, letting her words sink in. The room fell silent except for the faint hum of camera shutters clicking. On the screen behind her, the first document appeared, an email chain between Victor Kane and one of his operatives discussing how to discredit Jasmine by leaking forged emails. "This," Jasmine continued, pointing to the screen, "is proof that the emails used against me were fake. They were created and planted by members of an organization called the Syndicate, a group dedicated to sowing division and chaos for their own gain. Their goal? To pit powerful figures against each other, destabilizing governments and controlling global events." As she spoke, more documents appeared on the screen. Bank transfers showing payments made to Rachel Meyer's brother under false pretenses, security footage of Victor meeting with high-ranking officials at Nexus Dynamics, and algorithms designed to manipulate public opinion online. "These people operate in the shadows," Jasmine explained, her voice growing stronger. "They use technology, blackmail, and fear to control those around them. And they almost succeeded in destroying me." She turned to face the audience directly, her eyes blazing with determination. "But I refuse to let them win. So today, I'm exposing them, to you, to the world, and to anyone who believes in justice. What you see here is undeniable proof of their crimes. It's up to us now to hold them accountable. The room erupted into murmurs as reporters scrambled to take notes and snap photos. Some shouted questions, but Jasmine raised a hand to silence them. Before we open the floor to questions, there's one more thing I need to say. Her gaze softened slightly, though her tone remained firm. I made mistakes during this ordeal. Mistakes I deeply regret. Losing my temper on live television was wrong, and I apologize for letting emotions get the better of me. But what happened to me wasn't just about politics or policy. It was part of a calculated attack designed to destroy lives. And if we don't stand together to stop it, no one will be safe. When she finished speaking, the room exploded into applause. Reporters rushed forward, shouting questions and holding microphones toward her. Cameras flashed non-stop as Jasmine answered calmly, presenting fact after fact to back up her claims. Beside her, Lucas and Mia watched silently, their faces tense but hopeful. Within hours, the story dominated headlines worldwide. Social media lit up with reactions ranging from outrage to disbelief. Lawmakers called for immediate investigations into Nexus Dynamics and the syndicate. Protesters gathered outside government buildings, demanding accountability and transparency. Victor Kane, however, wasn't willing to go down without a fight. That evening, he appeared on national television, attempting to spin the narrative in his favor. These accusations are baseless, he declared, his usual charm replaced by thinly veiled desperation. Congresswoman Crockett is grasping at straws to save her failing career. But the public wasn't buying it. The evidence Jasmine presented was too damning, too detailed to dismiss as lies. Even some of Victor's allies began distancing themselves, fearing association with a sinking ship. Back in her office later that night, Jasmine sat alone, staring at the glowing city skyline. She felt drained, physically and emotionally exhausted from the battle she'd fought. Yet strangely, she also felt lighter, as if a weight she'd been carrying for years had finally lifted. Rachel walked in quietly, hesitating before approaching Jasmine's desk. "Can we talk?" she asked softly. Jasmine nodded, gesturing for her to sit. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Rachel broke the silence. "I know I messed up. I betrayed your trust, and I'll never forgive myself for that, but I want you to know. I'm sorry. Truly sorry." Jasmine studied Rachel's face, seeing the guilt and regret etched into her features. She didn't forgive her completely, not yet, but she understood why Rachel had done what she did. Fear could make people do terrible things. "Thank you for saying that," Jasmine replied gently. "We all make mistakes. What matters now is learning from them and moving forward." Rachel nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "If there's anything I can do to help, you already have," Jasmine interrupted. "You gave us the key to taking them down. Without you, none of this would have been possible." As Rachel left the office, Jasmine leaned back in her chair, closing her eyes. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Rebuilding her reputation would take time, and the syndicate wouldn't disappear overnight. But for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. The following days brought a whirlwind of activity. Investigations launched into Nexus Dynamics, and the syndicate uncovered layers of corruption reaching far beyond what anyone expected. Arrests were made, lawsuits filed, and reforms proposed to prevent similar schemes in the future. Jasmine became a symbol of resilience, admired not just for surviving the scandal but for standing up to forces far greater than herself. Though her political career was left in tatters, Jasmine found new purpose. She started a nonprofit organization aimed at educating the public about the dangers of unchecked corporate and technological power. With Lucas and Mia by her side, she traveled the country, giving speeches and advocating for change. One evening, as she stood on stage addressing a packed auditorium, Jasmine reflected on everything she'd been through. She thought about the emails, the betrayal, the late nights spent chasing the truth. Most of all, she thought about the cost of fighting for justice and whether it had been worth it. Looking out at the sea of faces watching her, she realized the answer was yes. No matter the personal sacrifices, exposing the truth mattered. Holding powerful people accountable mattered. Standing up for what was right, even when it seemed impossible, mattered. And as she walked off stage to thunderous applause, Jasmine knew one thing for certain. She'd do it all over again.